Ava, 34, stepped into the grand ballroom of the Bellevue Hotel, the venue for her sister Vanessa's 10th wedding anniversary celebration. Everything sparkled like a dream: crystal chandeliers, soft violin music, champagne towers, and elegantly dressed guests swaying to gentle rhythms. On the surface, the night was flawless. Ava smiled, trying to immerse herself in the festive mood. After a recent breakup with a commitment-phobic partner, she needed an excuse to wear a nice dress and forget her reality for a while. This glamorous party seemed like the perfect distraction. Her parents, Robert and Susan, welcomed her warmly. They had no idea how conflicted Ava had been about attending. Her relationship with Vanessa had always been complicated. Beneath the sisterly bond lay decades of rivalry, jealousy, and unhealed wounds. Vanessa, 3 years older, had always taken what she wanted, no matter the cost. When Ava made the cheerleading team, Vanessa spread rumors of cheating. When Ava brought home her first boyfriend, Vanessa coincidentally became his chemistry tutor and then his girlfriend. The family dismissed it all as sisterly competition, but Ava had always felt the blade behind the smile. And yet here she was, dressed up, smiling, still hoping deep down that one day Vanessa would see her as a sister, not a rival. Vanessa approached in a designer Vera Wang gown, elegant, commanding. She air-kissed Ava and whispered, "Lovely dress. Rental right." Ava smiled politely. "Good to see you too, Vanessa. Everything looks amazing." Vanessa squeezed Ava's hand just a bit too tightly, then added, "Not all of us have a marriage to celebrate, but don't worry, you'll find someone. Maybe try being less picky." Before Ava could reply, Nathan, Vanessa's husband, appeared. Warm and genuine, he embraced her and asked about her new position. Ava shared briefly about her recent promotion to project director at a marketing firm, an achievement no one else had asked about. Nathan listened attentively and promised, "We'll have a dance later." Vanessa's expression tightened as she grabbed Nathan's arm. "Darling, the Andersons just arrived. We should greet them." Ava watched them walk away, noticing the tension etched on Nathan's face. As the evening wore on, Ava observed more subtle signs. Nathan kept glancing her way. Despite the celebration, Vanessa and Nathan rarely stood close. Their interactions felt scripted, their smiles strained. The perfect facade was beginning to crack. After the opening dance, Ava slipped away to a quiet corner near the tall ballroom windows. The noise, the crowd, the carefully curated glamour, it all felt suffocating. She set her champagne glass down and headed to the restroom to freshen up. When she returned moments later, something made her stop. In the large reflective window beside her table, she caught a chilling sight: Vanessa. Her sister stood by Ava's untouched glass, glancing around, before slipping something small from her clutch and dropping it swiftly into the drink. Her lips curved into a smug smile before she disappeared back into the crowd. Ava froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Suddenly, everything made sense. The calculated betrayal from their youth, the sabotaged cheerleading spot, the stolen boyfriend, the mysteriously ill college roommate, each thread weaving into a darker tapestry. Ava had always suspected, but this was confirmation. Her gaze shifted to the glass. Under the soft lighting, a faint residue clung to the side, almost invisible, but present. Ava didn't know what it was. A sedative, a laxative. Something to disorient or embarrass her. Whatever it was, she wasn't about to find out the hard way. She didn't scream or confront Vanessa, not yet. Ava needed to be certain. She needed proof. More importantly, she needed someone to understand what Vanessa was capable of. Someone like Nathan. She scanned the room. Nathan stood near the gift table, alone for the moment. Vanessa was engaged in a lively conversation across the ballroom. It was now or never. Ava picked up the tainted champagne and approached him with casual ease. "How about a toast?" she asked cheerfully. Nathan smiled wearily. Another speech. Not public. Just between us. She raised her glass. To 10 more years. He reached for his whiskey. Ava gently intercepted. Champagne is more appropriate, don't you think, she said, switching the glasses smoothly. To happiness, she said, and to truth, however uncomfortable. Nathan gave her a puzzled look, but clinked glasses and drank deeply. Ava barely touched the whiskey. Across the room, Vanessa noticed and smiled, thinking Ava had taken the drink. She had no idea the plan had backfired. Ava watched her sister closely, heart racing. Something dark was lurking beneath Vanessa's carefully curated life, and Ava had just opened the door to expose it. As the champagne slid down Nathan's throat, Ava kept her eyes trained on him, watching for the slightest reaction. No one else in the lavish ballroom suspected that a silent domino effect had begun. The string quartet continued playing, guests kept laughing and mingling, unaware that something was changing. At first, Nathan seemed fine. He chatted with a colleague, even laughed at a joke. But minutes later, Ava noticed a shift. A slight frown creased his forehead. His hand trembled as he held his glass. He loosened his tie and muttered about the room being too hot. Ava furrowed her brow. Standing near the dessert table, she pretended to examine the offerings while keeping close watch on him. Vanessa remained oblivious, still laughing with her college friends, occasionally shooting a satisfied glance toward Ava. She believed her plan had worked, that Ava had consumed whatever substance she slipped into the glass and would soon become the evening's embarrassment. But her smugness was about to shatter. Nathan stumbled slightly toward the gift table, bumping a chair. Several guests turned with concern. Ava edged closer, alert. His eyes seemed unfocused, a distant fog settling over them. Nathan, Ava asked gently. He looked at her, blinking hard. Ava, why are there two of you? His speech was slow. Or maybe that champagne. Ava steadied his hand as he nearly dropped his glass. People nearby began to murmur. Nathan gave a sheepish smile, trying to stay upright, but his steps faltered. A nearby server rushed over, offering help. Ava nodded. It's just too much wine, Vanessa said, suddenly appearing beside them. Her voice was strained but carefully controlled. We'll get him outside for some air. Ava didn't back down. Maybe we should call medical help. He's dizzy, hallucinating, and he hasn't had that much to drink. Vanessa's eyes snapped to Ava, a flicker of panic flashing beneath her calm mask. Ava, don't overreact, she whispered, voice trembling beneath the surface. Or are you afraid the truth will come out? Ava replied quietly, eyes locked on Vanessa's. In that moment, their gazes clashed, fear meeting resolve. And Ava knew Vanessa had realized what happened. The illusion of control was slipping, and the perfect image Vanessa fought to preserve was on the verge of unraveling. Nathan's balance deteriorated quickly. As he staggered toward the dance floor, he collided with the gift table, sending beautifully wrapped boxes tumbling in every direction. The loud crash drew all eyes to him. Ava, Nathan slurred. Since when do you have a twin? A few chuckles flickered through the crowd, but quickly faded when he dropped to one knee, colliding with a server and toppling a tray of champagne flutes. The glass shattered with a piercing ring. Call an ambulance, someone yelled. He might be having a stroke. Panic rippled through the guests. Vanessa rushed forward, trying to lift her husband, but he waved her off, eyes wild and voice trembling. You're always watching, always controlling. I can't breathe anymore. 10 years of pretending it's enough? Ava stood still amid the chaos, heart pounding. She knew the moment of truth had arrived. Then her mother's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. What did he take? Does anyone know, Nathan? Are you on medication? Did you mix it with alcohol? Vanessa's hand shook. He just had a little champagne. That's all? That's not true. Ava stepped forward, her voice clear and cold. That glass was mine. I saw exactly who tampered with it. Silence fell over the room. Eyes turned from Ava to Vanessa. Vanessa gaped. I don't know what you're talking about. Really, Ava continued, gaze unwavering. I saw your reflection in the window. You were standing at my table, pulling something from your purse and dropping it into my champagne. I switched the glasses with Nathan's. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Vanessa's expression turned panicked. I just wanted to help you relax. You've been so tense. Everyone can see it. A sedative mixed with alcohol, their mother cut in, horrified. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? Crushed under the weight of their judgment, Vanessa broke. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't mean for him to drink it. I didn't know. But you meant for me to, Ava said quietly. You wanted to humiliate me. But this time I didn't stay silent. The truth had been spoken. And in that moment, the perfect image of Vanessa, the doting wife, the golden daughter, the flawless sister, cracked. The mask she had so carefully crafted shattered across the polished marble floor, leaving nothing to hide behind. The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes of Nathan collapsing on the ballroom floor. The entire event froze, music cut off, conversations hushed, and guests huddled in uneasy circles, whispering, but not daring to speak too loudly. Ava stood in the middle of the chaos, her gaze locked on Vanessa, who now trembled so violently she could barely speak. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly surrounded Nathan, who was slumped against the wall, pale and sweating. Ava stepped forward, her voice eerily calm. I believe he drank a sedative, unknown dosage mixed with alcohol. A female EMT turned to her, tone serious. Do you know what kind? Ava didn't respond right away. She slowly turned toward Vanessa, who stood silently, lips pressed together, face ashen under the harsh ballroom lights. What did you put in the champagne? Ava asked, no longer hiding the confrontation. Vanessa's head dropped. Her lips moved and she whispered like a confession Ativan. Just one pill. It's prescribed to me. I thought it would help her relax. You thought drugging me without my knowledge would help me relax? Ava's voice was cold. That's assault. Possibly worse. At that moment, their parents, Robert and Susan, arrived. Robert's face went dark with disbelief. Vanessa, is that true? No answer was necessary. The faint nod Vanessa gave was enough. Nathan, still dazed, caught bits of the exchange. He looked up at her, his words slurred. You drugged Ava's drink, but I drank it. Vanessa sank into a chair, sobbing. But this time the tears didn't mask the truth. Ava stepped back. There was no triumph in her heart, only hollowness. As the ambulance pulled away with Nathan inside, Ava made a decision. She would follow, not out of guilt, but because Nathan deserved someone who would stand beside him. Someone who saw past the lies for the first time in 10 years. At the hospital, in the quiet glow of emergency lights, Ava sat in the waiting area outside the ER. Her parents were a few seats away, silent and stunned. Vanessa had been pulled aside for questioning by staff. Each passing minute sliced through Ava's mind, not from guilt, but from the understanding that this time no one could shield Vanessa from consequences. Eventually, a doctor in blue scrubs approached. Family of Nathan Calloway. All three stood up immediately. He's stable. We've given him fluids and are monitoring his breathing. Fortunately, the sedative dosage wasn't too high. However, because of the interaction with alcohol, we'll be keeping him overnight. He's conscious now and has asked to speak with Ava first. Ava blinked in surprise, glanced at her parents, then nodded. Inside the room, Nathan lay pale and exhausted, hair tousled, but eyes clear. They brightened when he saw her. Hey, Ava said gently. Didn't expect to see you here? After a party, Nathan gave a weak chuckle. Honestly, this might be the most honest part of the celebration. He gestured to the chair. Ava, there's something I need you to know. Tonight wasn't the first time. She froze. What do you mean? He stared at the ceiling, then back at her. Vanessa has been controlling me for years, manipulating me, making me question my reality. It's not physical, but it's emotional abuse. Jealousy, control, suspicion. And when I brought up separation, she got terrifying. Ava swallowed hard. She wasn't surprised she'd seen signs, but hearing it out loud hit harder. I've kept journals, recordings on my therapist's advice, Nathan continued. Tonight, when she drugged your glass and I ended up drinking it, that was the clearest moment I've had. She crossed a line. Are you going to press charges? Ava asked. He was quiet for a moment, then shook his head. No, but I am leaving. For good this time. Ava reached out gently, holding his hand. Thank you for telling me the truth. The hospital lights were sterile and cold, but for the first time in years, Ava felt something being purified not by medicine, but by the courage to face what had been buried for too long. 1 week after the fateful party, Ava's father made the call, his voice low and firm. Sunday, 2 p.m. Everyone will be there. No excuses. The family home, once filled with the sounds of childhood laughter and the scent of baked cookies, now carried a different weight. The nostalgia was laced with unspoken tension. Ava arrived on time. Not early, not late. She didn't expect anything, but she wasn't running anymore. Vanessa was already seated at the dining table, once a warm center of family gatherings, now a silent courtroom. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She looked pale, hair pulled back hastily, eyes swollen from tears. Their father, a seasoned university professor in conflict psychology, began slowly, deliberately. I've taught conflict resolution for decades. But I never imagined I'd have to mediate between my own daughters. No one spoke. Ava kept her gaze on the polished table, sensing the heaviness in the room. Vanessa, he continued. Do you have something you'd like to say? Vanessa clasped her hands tightly, voice trembling, but clear. I don't have an excuse. I know what I did was wrong. Not just at the party, but for years. I've always felt like I had to fight for everything. Everything felt like a battle. Ava lifted her head, not angry, just weary. She had heard too many apologies. What she needed now wasn't emotion, but truth. I don't need your guilt or tears, Ava said. I just need you to admit this wasn't just wrong, it was toxic. Vanessa nodded, her voice cracking. Nathan won't take my calls. His lawyer sent the separation papers. I know it's real this time. And you're surprised? Their mother asked quietly but sharply. After everything that happened, you wanted to hold on to your marriage with lies and control. Vanessa said nothing. Her tears fell silently. Ava sat still, but inside waves churned. She had tried for years to understand, to forgive, but each time ended in fresh wounds. And this time was the final threshold. No one spoke for a long moment. The air in the room was thick with words left unsaid. Finally, their mother gently placed a hand on Ava's shoulder and turned to Vanessa. Have you ever asked yourself why you behave this way? Why everything feels like a battle even when no one is fighting you? Vanessa inhaled shakily, eyes still lowered. Her voice cracked. I started seeing a therapist after that night. I needed to understand what's going on inside me. She thinks I may have borderline personality disorder. It's not a formal diagnosis yet, but it explains a lot. Silence settled again. Ava looked at her sister, truly looked, and saw not the manipulator, not the rival, but a deeply wounded child pretending to be in control. I don't want to use a diagnosis as an excuse, Vanessa continued, but for the first time someone really saw me. I controlled Nathan because I was terrified of losing him. I hurt you because I always felt small next to you. Ava swallowed. Did you ever think I was hurting too? You never had to beat me, Vanessa. I was never your opponent. I was your little sister, who just wanted to be loved like one. No one said more. Nothing else needed to be said. Later that afternoon, Ava stood on the porch, the breeze brushing past. Vanessa joined her holding a steaming cup of tea. Nathan signed the divorce papers, she said softly. He didn't want drama, just closure. I think he's had enough. Ava nodded. He deserves peace. Vanessa turned to her eyes rimmed red. Do you think there's hope for us? Ava paused, then replied gently. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's accepting that we can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward. I'm willing to take small steps, but you have to walk, Vanessa. Not just apologize and stand still. Vanessa nodded. It was the first time she didn't try to explain herself. And in that silence, something real began. 6 weeks after the family meeting, Ava found herself sitting in a group therapy room with her parents and Vanessa. What would have once felt impossible now marked a tentative step toward healing. The room was softly lit with beige fabric sofas and a ticking wooden wall clock. Ava sat beside her mother, leaving a deliberate space between her and Vanessa. She wasn't there to offer instant forgiveness. She was there to understand and to break the cycle of pain. Their therapist, Mrs. Reynolds, was an older woman with a kind voice and sharp eyes. Everyone in this room carries their own wounds, she said. But healing doesn't begin with blame. It begins with the willingness to look inward. Vanessa looked down. Ava looked forward. Vanessa, Mrs. Reynolds said gently, "Can you share what led you to choose control over communication?" Vanessa was quiet for a long time before whispering, "I thought if I didn't hold on tightly, everything would leave me. Nathan, everyone, even Ava. I didn't believe anyone would stay unless I managed them." Ava didn't cry. Her voice was steady. "You controlled me by belittling me, by turning everything into a competition I never signed up for. And when I reacted, I was too sensitive, too weak. Do you know what that does to someone's sense of self?" Vanessa nodded for once without excuses. In the sessions that followed, silence slowly gave way to real conversations. Ava didn't forgive overnight, but she began to listen, not to justify the harm, but to understand the mindset of someone who believed hurting was the only path to being loved. After nearly 2 months of consistent family therapy, Ava realized something: healing doesn't arrive through explosive moments or dramatic tears. It comes quietly through honest words, well-timed silences, and the courage to see one another as two people trying to understand, no longer opponents in a lifelong silent war. Vanessa changed not through grand gestures or empty promises, but through presence. She listened more, interrupted less. She started owning up to small mistakes, not to gain favor, but because she genuinely felt responsible. One afternoon after therapy, Vanessa caught up with Ava in the hallway. Her expression held no desperation, no pretense, just a quiet offering. "If someday you'd like to grab coffee talk like regular people, I'd like that." Ava didn't answer right away. She simply gave a small nod. And for the first time in years, that nod wasn't out of politeness. It was partly real. A week later, they met at a small cafe downtown, a place they used to visit during college before things between them fractured. Vanessa arrived early, dressed simply in a sweater, her hair tied back, no makeup. There was nothing to hide, nothing to prove. "Thanks for coming," Vanessa said, fingers wrapped around a cup of tea. "I'm still angry," Ava said plainly, "but I don't want to carry that anger for the rest of my life." Vanessa nodded. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, but if you'll allow me, I'll keep trying to earn it." The conversation wasn't long, nor was it profound, but it was enough to mark the start of a new chapter, not because the past had been erased, but because both women had chosen to walk through it. Autumn arrived, slowly painting the trees outside Ava's apartment in hues of gold. It had been nearly 6 months since that fateful anniversary party, the switched glass, the collapse of illusions. And while so much had fallen apart, Ava found herself slowly stitching something new within herself. She began writing again, not for anyone, not to prove anything, just to name the things that had lived too long in silence. She wrote about being hurt by family, about long-held anger, about how forgiveness wasn't forgetting, but choosing not to carry the weight anymore. On quiet weekend mornings, Ava took her journal and a cup of coffee to the park. She sat under trees, letting the sun warm her shoulders and the breeze stir the thoughts she'd kept buried. One afternoon, Nathan called. His voice sounded lighter, as if something inside him had finally released. I moved into a new apartment near downtown. I started working with a nonprofit that supports survivors of emotional abuse. Funny, but I feel more real than I ever have. Ava smiled. I'm glad you're living for yourself. And you, he asked. Are you okay? Ava looked down at her hands. They no longer trembled, no longer clenched. I'm learning how to just be, she said. Not trying to please anyone, not carrying scars that don't belong to me. The call wasn't long, but it was enough for two people who had witnessed a storm together to realize that sometimes collapse isn't the end. It's the start of something better. One crisp October afternoon, Ava met Vanessa one last time before they each stepped into new phases of their lives. It wasn't a reunion to fix what was broken or to start over, but a meeting to speak honestly as two people once bound by blood, now learning to love from a safer distance. Vanessa had accepted a new job in Seattle, a fresh start, not to escape, but to stop being consumed by the past. Since getting help, I've realized, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is walk away, Vanessa said, tracing the rim of her teacup. You don't have to stay on guard anymore. You can live your life. Ava nodded. Her eyes no longer held pain, only calm. And you get to start again without stealing what was never yours. They sat in silence for a while. Neither tried to revive the closeness they had lost, but neither denied the truth of what had once been real. As they prepared to leave, Vanessa hesitated. If it's okay, may I hug you? Just once. Ava didn't answer right away. She looked at her sister, not an enemy, not quite a friend, but a human being trying. Then she nodded slowly. The hug didn't last long, but it was the final embrace between two former versions of themselves before each walked their own path without bitterness, without clinging, without looking back.